Hello, it's Silas for DinoPC, and would you believe it? We've got the Master Case Maker 5T from CoolerMaster. You better pull up your socks and hold on to your hats, because this is going to be a big one. Straight away with the 5T, we can see some very obvious changes over the Maker 5, primarily the red accenting and the transportation handle on the top. The 5T is still based on the Maker 5, however, and does share the same visual similarities and general design. Another glaring change is the addition of tempered glass panels on both the right and left-hand sides of the case. It is worth noting that this is the only case in the Master Case series that comes with tempered glass panels as standard, and it is a little bit disappointing that this is not standard on even the Maker 5, which is already a very premium case. Checking out the rear of the case shows little difference to the Maker 5, and you get exactly the same motherboard I/O cutout, space for a 120 or 140mm fan, 7 expansion slots, and a removable PSU mount with very chunky captive thumb screws. Unsurprisingly, there is a Psu Dust Filter which is held in place with a pressure fit, and it's super easy to remove, making cleaning a breeze. There is also the same Swiss cheese style PCIe cover that we've seen on the Master Box 5, reviewed previously. The front of the case is awesome. I'm a huge fan of the sleek angled panel which is hinged, giving you access to two 5¼ bays. This is also removable to help with building, and there's a very premium feeling sound dampening material to help with front fan noise. Removing the front panel also grants you access to the front fan filter, which is held in place with a couple of plastic tabs. Removing this filter is really easy and requires very little effort. There are also two 140mm fans included as standard, mounted to the front of the case. A big feature change is the large rubberized handle which has been added to the 5T to make transporting it around easier, and I've been told this will likely be an accessory you'll be able to purchase separately. The rear of the top panel is also pleasingly angular and juts out from the rear, giving the case an overall more aggressive look. There is a small panel on the top which you can remove to open up some airflow if required, and the whole plastic top cover is held in place with strong magnets, giving you access to the top dual 120mm or 240mm fan mounts very easily. Let's take a look at some of the accessories that come with the 5T. Just like the Maker 5, you're provided with this awesome metal tin for accessories, a small manual and a microfiber cloth to help with cleaning fingerprints off the tempered glass panels. In the CoolerMaster tin, you get a couple of brackets for mounting a third fan to the front of the case or for fan controller installation. Some cable ties and some reusable sticky back cable clips are also included. You also get a couple of keys, and more on these in a minute. With the case screws themselves, CoolerMaster have really outdone themselves. They are provided in sealed plastic bags which are individually labelled to help you select the right screw. Such a simple touch which makes building in the 5T much less confusing. Something I only discovered by accident as well is that the accessory tin actually has a magnet in its base. So essentially you get a small magnetic parts tray for free with the 5T, which is absolutely brilliant. The included keys are actually for removing the tempered glass side panels, which I must say is both a blessing and a curse. You do feel a sense of security when reattaching the side panel, which is reassuring. However, if you misplace these keys, you are stuck not being able to remove the side panel. Onto the internals. The red finish throughout the PSU cover and motherboard tray is very pleasing, and there is a chance CoolerMaster will be releasing different colour variants if red is not your favourite. The motherboard tray also supports Mini ITX, MATX and ATX motherboards. On the rear of the case there is a single 140mm fan included as standard. There are also lots of cable routing pass-throughs, some rubber grommeted, and on the PSU shroud there are two mounts for 2.5-inch SSDs or hard drives. Another feature that also differs from the Maker 5 is the inclusion of this GPU support bracket. This actually looks really good and is designed to support dual GPU setups. It's pretty versatile in terms of its size and position of GPUs, and adjusting it is really easy with the attached thumb screws. This also works on the same free-form modular mounting system as lots of other Maker series accessories. Also included is a red LED strip which is magnetic, allowing you to position it as preferred. At the rear of the case, lots of cable management options are present, including a channel with Velcro straps which easily accommodates all the front I/O cabling and should have space for other PSU cables as well. For fans and LEDs, included is CoolerMaster's own controller which allows connections of up to 4 LED strips and up to 6 3-pin fans. The transparent cover is removable as well if you want to get a better view when connecting fans and LEDs. Taking a closer look at the top assembly, the mounting for the carry handle is actually pretty hard to remove. This is also necessary if you want to install any coolers or fans at the top of the case. I say it was pretty hard to remove, but I can understand exactly why CoolerMaster have gone down this route, as you really wouldn't want the handle to fall off when carrying your rig around, so in this case the multiple screws are completely necessary and appreciated. The top fan mount is held in place with the same chunky captive thumb screws though, so after disassembling the top handle, removing the fan mounting bracket is easy. For front I/O, we have your typical power and reset switches, headphone and microphone jacks, and 4 USB 3.0 ports. You do also get control of fan speed and LED strips on 2 separate buttons. Now it is a bit of a shame that the material used is glossy plastic, as you tend to touch the front I/O quite a bit, and fingerprints are inevitable. It does look really good when clean though. Now, unlike some recent case reviews, as this is CoolerMaster's current flagship Maker 5 series case, we wanted to see how it would accommodate a more premium configuration. So we attempted to cram in an X99 gaming 5P motherboard from Gigabyte, a 5820K, 32GB of Corsair Vengeance LED memory, two RX 480s, Intel 750 series 400GB PCIe storage, and an optical drive for good measure. To power it all, we used a Corsair 1000-watt RMX power supply. Our attempt was to see what compromises had to be made with this case, so we also went for a Corsair H110 280mm water cooler to see what mounting options were available. And the final results, I think, speak for themselves. Unfortunately, during the build, there were some frustrating elements which did require more thought and time to put right, and it did slow me down a little bit. For starters, the optical drive bay wouldn't allow me to install the cooler on the roof of the case, and although I appreciate that some people might just omit the optical drive, if you had purchased a high-end Blu-ray drive only to find that you couldn't fit it, you'd be pretty disappointed. This was remedied, however, by installing the cooler at the front of the case, and the space was made for the radiator by shifting the hard drive bay slightly, which was relatively easy. The smoke effect on the tempered glass, however, also meant that the guts are relatively hard to see. Even the included LED strip didn't help change this, and you would have required a bunch more LEDs to actually make an impact on the visibility of the internals. I personally would have much preferred to see a clear side panel, as the smoke glass is almost like having no window at all. It swings and roundabouts though, as this does help behind the motherboard tray to hide bad cable management. But equally, I've never really seen the point of having tempered glass behind the motherboard, as the idea is kind of to hide unsightly cables there. Removing the panel, you can see what I mean. Unless you go down the route of all custom cables and custom cable lengths, there will always be some issues with cable management, and the placement of the fan/LED controller kind of adds to this problem. Even the basement is on show, so it's a bit tricky stashing cables there. The cable management channel is great, however, and was able to hold not only the front I/O but also SATA power and 24-pin cables neatly and easily. The Velcro straps kept everything in place very well. Now, a couple of issues with the case. The front I/O, you do get 4 USB 3 ports, which is fantastic, but both are only internal header cables. There aren't that many motherboards around with more than one, so in our case, 2 of the ports became redundant. It would have been nice to see USB internal 3.0 to 2.0 adapters included, which would have easily solved this problem. To test front panel clearance, the optical drive was installed in the lower of the 2 bays, and there is still easily enough space to have the drive open without making contact with the front panel, which is great, so this has been well thought through. The included 2-bay hard drive caddy is modular, which is also really nice, however became less secure when moved to make room for the 280mm radiator. The 2 thumb screws had nowhere to mount, and were just left to hang there. I had to use traditional screws to have the hard drives mounted correctly. However, you have to install these after the drive caddy is in place, due to clearance issues with the PSU cover, so make sure these are installed before your PSU, as getting to them afterwards is pretty tricky. The GPU support bracket did a really good job of holding up both 480s, however due to the size of the motherboard there were a few issues with the GPU support hitting cables, and even SATA connectors. This did impact its flexibility bit, and as such it might not support a card shorter in length than the RX 480. A pretty strange issue I encountered when mounting the cooler was the odd array of screw holes on the front of the case. There are some for the included 2 140mm fans at the front, and then some more rails for more versatile mounting. Getting mounting screws lined up correctly was actually pretty laborious though, because of this, and it would have been nicer to see just long rails than both specific screw holes and rails, and would have made mounting a lot easier. Now, don't get me wrong, the aim was to try and find issues with the case, regardless kind of how big or small they may be, and that kind of relates to the cost of the case, which is £230. Now this is truly a lot to be spending on a case, and at this point I don't really feel that there should be any issues. If you factor in the mentality that you should be spending about 10% of your overall budget on a computer case when building a new system, then you're looking at about a £2,200 build, which is kind of why we selected the components that we did. But the end result looks awesome. I think this is a truly outstanding case, and the way it's been built kind of looks pretty brilliant, if I say so myself. However, at the end of the day, the build did take a little bit longer than expected. This is kind of due to little issues like, say for instance, the GPU riser or the GPU support. It was pretty frustrating getting to the point at the very end of the build when all my cabling had been done and I wanted to put the GPU support back in, only to find that the cables were in the way, making me have to undo all my cabling and then fit the support and then redo the cabling, which is actually pretty frustrating towards the end of the build. With regards to this being CoolerMaster's kind of flagship case, however, certainly in terms of its price, it is probably the most expensive available at the moment. Let's see what it has to offer over the sort of original Maker 5 case. For starters, this kind of top carry handle, well, the case itself empty is about 15 kilos, and the minute we actually put all the components into it, it kind of climbed up to about 25 or so kilos, which is actually pretty heavy and made it pretty hard to move around by itself. I must say I did find that the Maker 5 handles, the sort of front and sort of back handles, were completely adequate for carrying the case small distances. That being said, if you are planning on using this as a LAN system and you do have the £230 to spend, it's not going to be great, but essentially you probably will have the money to pay for a cab to kind of carry the case and all of your peripherals to your next LAN. The tempered glass side panels as well are a really nice inclusion, both on the right and the left hand side, but I kind of feel like these should have been included in the original Maker 5, which is around about the £160, £170 mark, and a pretty premium case as it stands by itself. When you consider other cases out there on the market that can come under £100 with a tempered glass side panel, this doesn't necessarily strike you immediately as the best deal. The inclusion of the front 4 USB 3.0 ports is brilliant. I mean, fantastic front I/O and great speeds through those USB 3.0 ports, but the fact that one of them wouldn't be able to connect to the motherboard, of course, depending on your motherboard, is again a bit irritating, and to have to shell out an extra sort of 10 or 15 pounds on an adapter to make it all function towards the end of the build is kind of the sort of thing that you feel that CoolerMaster should have really considered and maybe thought to kind of chuck something like that in. It should have really been sorted before it actually came to shipping the case. All that being said though, what I really want to highlight is that CoolerMaster at the moment are doing something completely different to any other case manufacturer currently sort of offering with their freeform sort of modular approach. I mean, we've seen lots of other case manufacturers sort of attempt this in the past, say that they're going to bringing out sort of lots of accessories and little bits and pieces that they can put inside the case, and it's never really sort of happened. When you consider what CoolerMaster actually have available at the moment, they do already have a pretty extensive range of accessories, a lot of which do come included with this case as standard, but you do have options for sort of adding sort of tempered glass onto the case, or even sort of buying stuff like this GPU support and adding that to your kind of current CoolerMaster case, which I think is brilliant. Alongside that, on their website, they do have a pretty extensive sort of maker section as well, where sort of individuals are actually creating components, say for instance sort of top panels and PSU covers for these cases, and they're all sort of interchangeable, which means that again you have an even more varied selection of accessories to add to this case. Even if nothing out there suits you and you don't really find anything else that you like, CoolerMaster even have very detailed 3D models and sort of plans of these cases on their website. So if you want to go ahead and go to a laser cutter and have pieces cut and sort of a 3D printer and have pieces made, you can also do that yourself. You can really truly make it your own. But then with all these accessories available, it kind of begs the question, why would you go for this sort of flagship case with all the accessories kind of packed into it for sort of that premium price point, when you could go for just kind of like a very basic version and add on exactly what you want, and therefore sort of end up with a case which truly meets your own sort of requirements and needs. What I'd actually really like to see is CoolerMaster just almost producing like a frame, like a completely stripped out version of this case, and kind of do what we do with kind of custom computers, where you take the frame and then you add on your side panels and your front panel, and then you would truly get something which is completely unique and tailored to your specific needs. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to slate this case and pick out all these sort of individual issues and suggest that you don't go out and kind of consider this as a case for your next sort of build. What this case actually offers is something that not many other cases sort of tend to, which is a massive amount of future proofing. As I mentioned, there is already a pretty solid sort of storefront of accessories for this case, and more are supposedly on the way. So it does mean that sort of 2 years down the line, if say you want to add 2 more hard drives, you will be able to do that. You're not really limited to sort of external enclosures at that point. You could buy a caddy and sort of slot it in, and you would have the flexibility to upgrade your computer as you kind of move on down the line. Like, yes, the price is quite dear at £230, but this is truly an incredibly flexible case, and realistically it is a case that could last you the entire lifetime of even the components inside or any future upgrades. So this is really kind of like a case for your life. If you kind of look at it that way, then it doesn't really seem that expensive. And it kind of bears mentioning that, I mean, certainly in my experience, I don't know if yours differs, but I haven't really seen any other cases that truly offer the same flexibility as say the 5T or any other cases on CoolerMaster's range. When you consider all of this, it doesn't actually seem like that ridiculous a purchase, and it actually has me considering it as an option, a viable option certainly, for my next future build, sort of living safe in the knowledge that 2 years down the line, if I want to dramatically change the overall look of the computer, CoolerMaster have me completely 100% covered with a vast range of accessories to again kind of certainly meet my needs. But that being said, let me know your thoughts. What are your kind of comments? Do you think that this is a good idea and what CoolerMaster are kind of intending to do is a good approach to kind of case manufacturing? Do you think all the modular components actually make sense? Or again, is that the sort of thing that you aren't really that interested in? Would you prefer a case which kind of gives you the options that you need and that's it, and then sort of 4 years down the line when you want to change your build, you kind of just look to buying a new case? Or would you go for something like this, which actually gives you that flexibility and the upgradability in the future? So leave your thoughts and your comments down below. And as always, leave a like or a dislike, but please let us know why. Leave us a comment down below with your thoughts. We always want to try and improve the content and direct it more to our viewers, so giving us some more information on what we're doing right or what we're doing wrong is always beneficial to us. Well, we made it, guys. We've got to the end. It has been a pretty in-depth review of this particular case, and the video sort of length does kind of dictate that. So thank you very much for bearing with us, and of course, I'll see you in the next one.